أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. I seek refuge in Allah from shaitan the accursed, and I begin in the name of Allah, most gracious, most merciful. Today is the 23rd of March, 2019. My name is Umar Abdullah. I'm the head of the Waajihatul Islaamiyyah, the Islamic Front, and I'm here once more to speak to you on issues relevant to us here in this country and important to us, which seems to affect us, regularly as a people. Now, I just want to state this before I begin, to make this observation that I have never, all my years living in Trinidad and Tobago, come across a government or a party that really and truly, honestly cares for the people in this country. And, really the agenda is to reach out to the citizens of this country and actually, take care of them and to treat with them in a manner in which to will encourage and empower them and encourage growth, development, and so on amongst the people. So I've never come across a government or a party like that. I'm hoping that the next party that is going to, hold the office of government in this country would actually change that and would actually, present itself as a caring government, as a government that cares and a government that understands the cries of the people. Because by all accounts, the people are your most important asset. That's your most valuable asset that you have. Believe it or not. So don't mistreat people. Don't lie to us and do not deceive us. And this is exactly what we have been seeing happening within the last couple of weeks or so. Right? And I want to quickly point out here that, immediately when the Prime Minister came back from his so-called medical checkup in California, he sought to meet with the Muslim community and to alleviate some of the concerns that they would have expressed over the past week or week following the terrorist attack in New Zealand. And I'll quote him here: to ensure their rights to protection and equal place in Trinidad and Tobago. That was the intent of the meeting. And he went on to say, I want to give you the assurance as Prime Minister and as head of the National Security Council that your claim as an equal to an equal place in this country is undisputed and greatly defended. Very, very strong words. Very, very strong words. But my question is, where was those sentiments in 2018 when that fake carnival plot was announced and you went into the homes of 19 families and violated their human rights and abused it in the worst way, taking away their freedoms and compromising our sovereignty? Where was those sentiments? Undisputed and greatly defended. Where was that? Those sentiments. Instead, you came in June of that said year and indicated to Trinidad and Tobago that your actions during the carnival celebrations in arresting these individuals, violating their rights, you indicated that it was justified after the guns was found in the masjid there in Monroe Road. So, as if the false intelligence that you had that there was a carnival plot wasn't justified enough. You wanted another false flag to justify the lie. So you said that was justification for what it is you did in, going into the homes of these people and violating their rights and abusing them in such a manner. But those guns was planted there. And it was already planned. A raid was already planned on that particular masjid on that said day. But Allah is the best of planners. So He allowed the worshippers who were doing maintenance work on the masjid at the time to discover the guns before the raid took place. You could well imagine if they had raided that masjid and found those guns, what would have been the situation? It would have been a totally different story. But because the worshippers, they found the guns and ammunition, and they called it in, right? We had a different scenario played out. So I'm not fooled, and you can't fool me, that this meeting was intended, as you see, to give the assurance of protection and equal place, right? To that, our claim to an equal place in this country is undisputed and greatly defended. What about our Muslim sisters and children who are held up in Iraq and Syria? Undisputed and greatly defended. What about those children and those Muslim sisters who you are yet to claim as citizens of this country and repatriate? Are you speaking the truth here? Undisputed and greatly defended. Are you defending us? Are you really and truly defending us? You ask that the radicals be, the government, you're asking that, we deliver to you the names of those radicals within our communities and so on, in return for, protection and security and what have you. Is that what your meeting was all about? Was it? Or was it an attempt to misdirect the attention to something else, away from, another issue that needed to be scrutinized? The sale of Paria company. Was it a means of deflecting attention from that to the issue of the Muslims? Was it that? Or was it deflecting from your visit to California and that so-called medical checkup you went and got in California? It really disturbs me to understand a leader, a man who leads his people with an undisputed, with this undisputed, greatly defended policy that you have, would leave Trinidad and Tobago, all the health institutions that we have, and go to California to receive a checkup, to conduct tests that could have been done right here in Trinidad and Tobago. So the people of Trinidad and Tobago could suffer with the healthcare services that we have, whilst you get the very best in California. So that's what the citizens of this country, that's what taxpayers' dollars are paying for. While you disrespect and insult the citizens of this country, which is exactly what it is I understand took place with the Muslims. The Minister of Local Government, Kazim Hussein, was asked to get a compound for the meeting, allocate a compound for the meeting, and so the Astra compound in Charleville was sought, and you later then shifted the meeting from there to the diplomatic center so that you could control who comes there and who does not come there. But you could not have had that control in the Astra compound. So you needed to keep people like myself out of that meeting because I was going to disrupt your agenda. And your agenda was to lie and to deceive the Muslims in this country once again. We are waiting, still awaiting an apology from you for that fiasco that took place in 2018. We are still awaiting an apology, claiming that you received intelligence and you did not bother to check whether or not that intelligence was in fact based on truth or lie. And it is so apparent now with this global movement of white supremacists. This attack in New Zealand, right, is indicating to us clearly the agenda of the white supremacists and the paving of the way for the Zionist agenda throughout the globe. And you're using the Muslims. Using the Muslims. I heard Imtiaz Muhammad say the meeting was cut short and they did not get to raise some of the issues that they wanted to raise. And why was that? Well, why did that happen? And the Muslim community also needs to take some wrong here as well, because they are allowing themselves to be taken down this path. They're allowing themselves to be lied to, deceived, and making us believe that you are, working for us, you care about us. Well, if you care enough, you're going to bring back those children and those women held up in Syria and Iraq to Trinidad. If you care enough, you would apologize for the 2018 Carnival plot fiasco. If you cared enough. If you cared enough, you would have responded like how the New Zealand government responded to that attack. And I'll just highlight a couple of things here to indicate to you, the Prime Minister of this country, how a minority ought to be treated by the government. In New Zealand, having a population just about 4 million people, all of them genuinely came out and mourned. Genuinely, with no agenda. They immediately called out the attack as a terrorist attack. They immediately pointed out that it was a white supremacist attack. White supremacist terrorist attack. They raised $9 million in aid for the families and those grieving loved ones. The funeral expenses was taken care of by the government. Any persons were warned. Anyone caught spreading the propaganda and spreading the videos and so on would be liable on conviction, 14 years in prison. Guns was banned. Certain types of military type weapons were banned. Flowers and support. There were patrols around the masjids and so on, giving the sense of that added sense of security Even the gangs came out and were patrolling and offering that sense of support and security and so on. The Adhan was allowed to be played on the radio and television at the start of each prayer. Visas, people, applications for visas and so on was fast-tracked so that they would be able to come into the country and visit their loved ones and, give their condolences and so on. Hijab is being worn by non-Muslim women. They're wearing the hijab, the headscarf in support of the Muslim sisters there in New Zealand. Even the Prime Minister herself was seen wearing a hijab and hugging the people and crying with them. So you can see the compassion and the love, And in Parliament, the proceedings were started with an Islamic prayer in the Parliament. And those are just some of the things that happened. The government, the way the government and the people responded in New Zealand. But after hearing that, we have to understand that there is a reason why that all that came about. It just didn't happen overnight. It has a history. The government has a history of taking care of its people, which is why they're listed as the third safest country in the world. So here we can see there's a direct correlation between the way government treats its people and security and crime. No wonder our crime is at the level it is, because of the disregard our government to its people. The disrespect and the disregard this government has for the people of Trinidad and Tobago. Whenever a government loves its people, and as you say, Mr. Rowley, defend them and indicate to them in no way their right place in this country is undisputed. Whenever you really do that, you would see a different response from the people in this country. You're going to see the levels of crime decreasing. You're going to see the levels of oppression decreasing. The level of poverty decreasing. You're going to see all these good things happening with your people. But because you're so bent on power, money, position, and pleasing your finances and your family and yourself, it's why we are where we are today in this country. We could never achieve, and I'm hoping that one day we could, this level of response by our government and the people in this country, because the government is also responsible for creating division and instilling hate amongst the people in this country. The government is responsible for that. But if there is a party or government that's going to take up the position of, the government in this country come the next general election, and they were to change that whole concept of how it is they treat people, then and only then would we see a positive change in this country. Then and only then we'll see it. The Muslims were insulted and disrespected in this meeting that you had with them. Because first of all, you needed to apologize for what took place in 2018. And we're still waiting on an apology. And I'm still demanding that you apologize for what took place. I'm demanding that you apologize. And come clean. And we need to understand when you say that you want us to hand over or to reveal to you who are the radicals in the communities and so on. I want some more clarification on that, because we need to understand there's a clear defining difference between a fundamentalist, a radical, an extremist, and a violent extremist. And we have to understand and clearly define these terms in order for us to, before we can even go forward with anything, with any program, with any initiative, anything. I hear the Muslims talking about they have come to, let me see if I can, the Muslim community in Trinidad and Tobago have apparently agreed to work with the National Security Forces to weed out radicals who are using Rasta City and Muslim gang banners to conduct criminal activity. All right. So there's apparently an agreement, an arrangement that was arrived at. But how could we arrive at an arrangement like that when we yet to understand what's a fundamentalist, what's a radical, who's a radical, who's an extremist, who is a violent extremist? We have not yet clearly defined those terms. And how could the Muslim community say they're working on a policy paper? Those who are involved in this, they're working on a policy paper to bring about this change. Before we can even talk policy paper, we need to understand these terms. And we need to understand whether or not the government sees us as fundamentalists, radicals, extremists, or violent extremists. Because I'll tell you what, if a man reads the Quran or the Bible or the Bhagavad Gita and takes the meaning literally, what it says in the text, and he follows it and practices it and puts it into practice, that makes that person a fundamentalist. But it does not necessarily make him a violent person. If that person goes beyond the text, and establishes norms within himself, his family, and try to emulate that in society, he could be considered a radical. But aren't we aware that it's because of fundamental approaches, fundamental initiatives, radical initiatives, radical change that has brought about goodness in the world, in many parts of the world? Aren't we aware of that? I'm sure we have all heard the statement in the past. Difficult times or drastic times like these deserves drastic approaches. And drastic measures to change what is happening before us. And those measures are going to be fundamental, radical? You tell me. The commissioner of police came into the office of the commissioner, as the commissioner of police in this country, Gary Griffith, and immediately there were fundamental and radical changes. Fundamental and radical changes. And extremists. Again, somebody who would take these texts or these quotations or these passages and go to the extreme with it and try to adopt an extreme approach to what is being read or what is being taught. Does it make that person a violent person? No, it doesn't. So let's talk about violent extremism now. Whenever a person takes those extreme understanding, extreme learnings, extreme ideas and concepts and uses violence to exercise that what exactly they want to perpetuate, what it is they want to implement, and they use violence to send their message. That is what we call violent extremism. So we have to have clearly defined understanding of what these terms and references mean. So it doesn't necessarily mean to say that a radical is a violent person, a fundamentalist is a radical person, an extremist is a radical person. So we have failed before we even started. The Muslim community needs to also understand that we have failed. We have failed. And we have failed the country, we have failed our membership, we have failed the Muslims in this country. Badly failed them. And imagine that we have issues amongst us within the Muslim communities that the Muslims are unable to address at this point in time. And they're talking about a policy paper between Rasta City and Muslims. A policy paper, a policy, what's a policy paper? A policy paper, that's what they do. That's what they're talking about. But they don't understand that we have sisters in this country whose husbands have been locked up, trumped up charges brought against them, false allegations brought against them, serving time in prison, awaiting trial, while the sisters and their children suffer on the outside. And when they go to these Muslim institutions and ask for help, the Muslim institutions will tell them that's not their policy, but they're talking about a policy paper. The Muslim institution will tell them that's not their policy. They help in cases like that. They help pay their rent. They help them with bail and all these things. That's not their policy, but they're working on a policy paper to stem the gang violence that the police has managed to sell us and market to us. That's what they're trying to do. I want to ask anybody in this country, the last couple of weeks, the last 2-3 weeks, when last any one of the murders related to Rasta City and Muslims? When last? But we somehow want to make this the big issue. We somehow want to make this the big issue. When in truth and in fact, the government is not treating with its people in a just and fair way. They're not. So we have the Muslim organizations talking about policy paper. They're working on a policy paper. You know, I want to laugh at this. They're working on a policy paper, but they yet still to understand their policy as regards to taking care of our Muslim women, our Muslim sisters who have found themselves in this situation. I know one particular organization a sister had gone to. She had to, when her child has an ailment, and oftentimes when the child gets sick, they would have to, the distance where they live, it's about 3/4 of a mile on a dirt road and about 1/4 mile on a paved road to get to the main road. And she would oftentimes have to, because her car is not working, the car has broken down, it's, can't be repaired, she doesn't have the money to repair the car, etc., etc. And she has to put that child on a wheelbarrow and push that child out that distance before she gets to the main road to get transportation to take the child to the health center. And that said, sister went to a particular Islamic organization, right? An Islamic organization that raises huge amount of monies for, victims of disasters abroad and all of that. And they boast themselves about, all the hard work that they do and all of that. And they told her that is not their policy, to help with the repair of the vehicle or to provide some means by which she can acquire a vehicle and she can pay back for the vehicle, or she can, pay for the vehicle after a period of time or over a period of time. And they told her that's not their policy. But the Muslims, they're working on a policy paper. They're working on a policy paper to solve crime and gang violence in this country. It is a joke. It is a joke. All these massages all over the place. Every so often, got barbecue tickets to sell. They're doing barbecue, raising funds for masjid funds, raising funds. Where all these monies go when they get these monies? How much bigger do we need to build our masjid or make our masjid? For the fudge, we don't even. If we have 3 lines, we have plenty, in our massages and so on. All right, but every time we have a barbecue, we're raising masjid funds. It's always about masjid funds. Does the membership benefit from these funds? Do they get anything from it? I am suggesting, instead of the masjids, hold these barbecues, because every time a masjid has a barbecue, they have to sell all these tickets, and the members from the other masjid have to contribute and so on and so forth. And every so often there are these tickets going around. Why not the masjids establish a barbecue outlet or a food outlet where they can employ members of the masjid, so there will be facilitating employment for their membership and taking their membership out of poverty. Why don't they do that? Why don't they give it to invest some money into a brother or a family to start a barbecue business, or sell barbecue on a regular basis, and the proceeds from the barbecue, some of the money goes back to the masjid and the rest stays with the person who is running the business. So he'd be able to pay his workers, and he'd be able to, invest back in his business and establish the business and so on. And what you'll be doing here is empowering the Muslims to get themselves, out of poverty and instead of they asking for zakat, or you have to give them the zakat, they will be paying you zakat instead. Why don't the masjids do this? But no, we're working on a policy paper. Yeah, a policy paper. We're working on a policy paper. But their policy is so outlandish. It's so you know, it's so ridiculous. Their policy is so ridiculous as it stands now in treating with the Muslims and treating with non-Muslims as well. Because we are not only responsible for taking care of Muslims, we are responsible for taking care of non-Muslims also. And in our communities, how much does our masjid do in our communities? Do we engage with the other NGOs within the community? Do we have representation on the village councils? Do we have representation in any one of these groupings within the community, so that we could work together with these groups to bring about a better society? Are we doing that as a Muslim country? No, but we're working on a policy paper. We are working on a policy paper to establish, I don't know what. You understand? Feeding into the nonsense that the government is feeding them. Feeding into the nonsense that the government is feeding into them. Feeding into them. The lies, the deception. And we continue to fall for this. We continue to fall for this. And this not only goes to the Muslims, it goes to non-Muslims as well. The entire population is being disrespected and insulted by this government. And not just this government, other governments that were here before. And I'm hoping that the next government to go into power will change it and will change their approach. But that is left to be seen. That is left to be seen. I am not going to sit here and allow this government to treat the citizens of this country in the manner in which they're treating us. There's a lot of poverty that exists amongst us. A lot of people don't have jobs. Look at what is happening to the workers who was working in Petrochin. What is happening with their salaries, what is happening with their payments. A lot of people are suffering as a result of it. A lot of businesses are complaining that business is not as usual, or how it used to be. What is the government doing to alleviate all of this and to help the population get themselves out of this predicament? What they're doing instead, they're playing politics with the people. They're playing on words and hoping that the citizens are gonna fool them. They're gonna fool the citizens of this country. The Minister of National Security is talking about intelligence and having intelligence. Well, let me tell you that having intelligence doesn't necessarily mean that there does not exist a threat. Having intelligence, New Zealand, the third safest country in the world, the government did not have intelligence that terrorist attack was going to take place. They didn't have. Netherlands, where the guy went in the tram car and killed 3 people. Netherlands also, who is listed as the 14th safest country in the world, did not have the intelligence that this act was going to be carried out. All right, and that incident is very suspect as well by me, because that could very well be the act of the white supremacists, acting as though it's a Muslim, making people believe it's a Muslim that carried out that attack, and that yes, the Muslim also is doing this, etc., etc. I'm saying that is highly suspect, because it could have been I believe it's a white supremacist that carried out that attack there as well, and they're trying to blame it on Muslims. So they didn't have the intelligence. So a country like ours, who are listed way down the scale, we are in the red zone. We are in the red zone. And you are telling me that you don't have intelligence. The commissioner of police said that we don't have intelligence at this point in time to suggest that something like this or something similar like this is going to happen. Well, intelligence is not evidence. When you have intelligence, you have information that you need to act upon, investigate, and to gather evidence so that you can make an arrest or you can charge someone for a crime or for a crime that they're about to commit. So stop using these pretty words and fooling the country into thinking that you all are doing something. Intelligence, intelligence, intelligence. What intelligence are you talking about? The same intelligence that America had when they went into Iraq, on the assumption that they had weapons of mass destruction. Destruction. That's the intelligence you're talking about? Is that the intelligence you're talking about? That false intelligence that they had? Stop using the term intelligence. Because you all are not intelligent enough to even use the word. You all are not even intelligent enough to use the word intelligence. Because again, it does not say that we do not have a credible threat in this country. It does not say that. You all can't even solve the petty crime that is taking place on our streets, let alone to detect a terrorist attack that is going to take place in this country. This country is small. We have policemen living in every community in this country. And you're telling me that we don't know when the criminals are going to plan an attack, or they're going to kill someone, or they're going to perpetrate a crime in this country. The police don't know nothing. And we have policemen living in every community in this country. But according to the reports, we also have policemen who are in drug blocks in this country. And we also have policemen who are involved in gang activity in this country. Because we have, a particular police officer before the courts charged for gang-related activities presently. And we have recently police officers being charged for fraud, and we have another report indicating that linking police officers to Venezuelan slave trade and all of that. So these are the type of police we have in this country. For the Minister of National Security to say that we have intelligence or we don't have intelligence, or we're acting on intelligence. Well, I have news to you. You cannot use that word intelligence if you're not intelligent enough. Simple. Simply putting it. So, Prime Minister Keith Rowley, Prime Minister Honorable Keith Christopher Rowley, you need to apologize for that fiasco that took place in 2018. And then I'm going to analyze whether or not that apology is sincere. And you're not just apologizing because you've been asked to apologize. Right? And we need to be clear on your position and your intention. Because if these Muslims come to you and they give up names of persons who they believe are radical, not necessarily violent, but radical, what exactly are you going to do with these names? Who are these names going to be given to? Who would be privy to that information? And what are they going to do? Or are you just doing that to appease the Trump administration to get back in favor with him? that, oh, I had a meeting with the Muslims and we have a understanding with the Muslims, and the Muslims is going to give up, those names to us, and we're going to know who are all the radicals in the country, and we're going to know who all the fundamentalists, and we're going to know who are all these Muslims and so on. So, how am I doing? How am I doing? So Trump is going to embrace him, and he's going to welcome him back into his court. Is that what you're doing? I am warning the Muslims to be very, very careful of this, because those individuals whom you would present to the government of this country, you will be placing your institution under the microscope, because they're not going to investigate the individual, they're going to investigate the organization from which the individual came. And if you Muslims do not understand what is happening, what is taking place, you all are going to cause us a lot of problems in this country, and you all are going to suffer the consequences. We are going to suffer the consequences, as a matter of fact, including myself, because I am pretty much sure that one of you out there would give up my name as well. So be careful what it is you all doing. Be careful, be very careful what it is you all doing and how you all engage with this government, or with any government, as a matter of fact. What I'm urging the Muslim community to do is to go back in your communities and do the work that you have been entrusted to do. Take care of the poor people. Take care of the needy. Address the needs of the people in that community. Make your communities better and safer. That is what you need to do. And I'm guaranteeing you, when these politicians come around election time to beg for votes, the people are going to tell them, you see, those Muslims, they're taking care of us pretty well. And at that point in time, we're going to shift the power of balance. The balance of power. We're going to shift the balance of power in this country. And everybody is going to want the community or the religious organization, because this is a message for all religious groups, the religious organization who are doing the work in the communities that they need to do, that they're supposed to be doing, is going to automatically put themselves in a position of power and influence. But we're not seeing it that way. We're not seeing it that way. We want to go and meet with the Prime Minister in an air-conditioned, sophisticated, posh place, and, eat little snacks and drink a glass of juice or something like that, and feel that the Prime Minister cares about us and he's concerned about us, when he did exactly the opposite in 2018, and he's still yet to apologize for that. He's still yet to apologize for that. So be careful. And there are a lot of Muslims who seems to, the same Muslims who are talking about this policy paper, right? And they want the Muslims or the rest of the Muslims in the country to know that they went and they asked questions surrounding the carnival plot, or they went and raised issues regarding the people who are in Syria, the women and children in Syria, and they raised questions about all these things and why the Prime Minister hasn't apologized and so on. They want all the Muslims to understand that they went and asked those questions. But did they ask those questions with the intention to get real answers? Did they ask those questions with the intention to get a real response? Or they ask it just because they want Muslims to know that we ask, We went and we ask. We went and we mention it. So, hooray. Congratulations. Right? You went and you did a great thing. So all the Muslims in the country now have to rally behind you because you went and asked that question, or you went and raised it. Where are the real answers and where's the real response? Where is it? Are we demanding it? No, we're not demanding it. And why we will not demand it? Why? Is it a policy that relates to Baktrian politics in this country? Is it that? Is it because that you have been getting lucrative contracts from the government and you don't want to say anything against the government? You don't want to disrupt the agenda? Or you want to appease the Prime Minister? You want to make sure that the Prime Minister is pleased with you? And he appreciates you? And he prefers to do business with you? And he prefers to sit with you and talk with you? That's what you want? And the real issues of the Muslims are not being addressed. All those sisters who are husbandless, their husbands are in jail. Some of them are with trumped up charges. Where did they get the money? Where are they getting the money to take the bails of their husband, for their husbands to come out? Where are they getting the money? Where are they getting the money to continue paying their rent? Where are they getting the money to mind their children? Where are they getting the money from? But when they go to the Muslim institutions, they tell them that's not our policy to pay rent. That's not our policy to take bail. So what is zakat money is for? What is zakat money is for? But all they're working on a policy paper. I want to see that policy paper. I'm waiting patiently to see that policy paper. I'm waiting patiently to see that policy paper. But you all, I want to address the policy that you have now on how it is you treat with your Muslims. And these Muslims who are suffering at the hands of the police that does not do proper investigation before they charge. They don't ever do a proper investigation before they charge somebody. They're quick to charge somebody. They're quick to take it before the courts. But little do they know when they do that, they suffer people in the process. They create a bigger problem that already existed. Because these families now have to go and find money to pay bail, to pay the bailers, to get their husbands out. They have to find money to go and pay a lawyer to represent their husbands in the court. Where are they getting this money from? Because why? The police do not do proper investigation before they charge somebody in this country. They're quick to hold people. They're quick to lock up anybody for a crime. And they suffer people in the process. Who is creating the problem in this country? Who is perpetrating crime in this country and elevating the levels of crime in this country? Is it the people or the treatment of the government of its people? Who it is? Tell me. This nonsense has to stop. And I'm not going to stop talking about it, and I'm not going to stop raising the issue. I'm no friend of no party in this country and no friend of no government in this country. I'm a critical bystander, and I am criticizing the wrong that you continue to do and the way you continue to treat the people in this country. And until you are able to come forward and show me differently that you really sincerely care about the people in this country, then and only then I may perhaps come with you, sit with you, and arrange with you, to work with you, to bring about a better society and a better country. Then and only then. But until such time, you have shown me nothing else but disrespect. And you have done nothing else but insult me and my Muslim brothers and sisters. And for the ones who do not know that they've been insulted and disrespected, I am telling them that they were insulted and disrespected. So don't feel that this meeting with the Muslims is going to go down nicely in your book. It's not going to go down nicely. Because I'm going to make sure that every Muslim hears this, what I'm saying. And let them understand what is happening. And let them realize that what they're doing is totally not in accordance with the way that we ought to operate. The Muslims in this country has a lot to offer. We have a lot to offer. But we need to first figure out amongst ourselves how it is we're going to get together and offer this and bring value to the table. Bring value to the table. And all this talk about meeting the Rasta City leaders and the Muslims and so on, and working on this policy paper, it's a big joke. It is a joke because we don't have policies right now that is conducive to our own. We don't have policies that is conducive to our own. That would benefit our own Muslim brothers and sisters. We don't. So let us be mindful of this, and let us be careful on how it is we proceed forward. And I am hoping that this message gets out and everybody understands what their role and function should be. So I pray that I've said what I said, and I pray whatever I have said I did not hurt or harm anyone. And I ask for, if that was done, I ask for Allah's forgiveness, and asking Allah to continue to guide me and to continue to see the truth as it is, and to continue to guide me along the path to bring about positive change in this country, and to bring about a change that is going to benefit all the citizens of this country, and not just the Muslims, but all the citizens in this country, because we need to be mindful of the fact that we are all neighbors, and we all have to live together and work together to bring about that change that we are so that we so want in this country. So take care until next time.